Welcome to the Hustle or Bust podcast powered by Paver Art. Our mission is simple: to dive deep into the world of entrepreneurship, small business, and all the success, struggle, and challenges that need to be confronted in the pursuit of growth. We celebrate the entrepreneurial spirit, but perhaps most important, we want you to learn at least one idea that you can put into action immediately to make your investment in time worthwhile. Growth is about challenging the status quo. It's disrupting your normal course of business and routine. This episode, we talk about getting out of your comfort zone as you build your growth plan. We hope you find a nugget or two and drop us a line on your ideas or feedback. Well, hello, everybody. This week's episode is about getting out of your comfort zone. And I think the first thing we need to do, it's not a little ambiguous. Most people will understand what we're talking about, but let's give them a more direct and specific idea of what we're talking about as it relates to small business.
Yep. Comfort zone, I think of what is your normal everyday behavior, right? That if you don't consciously decide to change it, that's what you're going to do. It's your normal routine. And a lot of people are routine driven. We eat the same thing for breakfast. We eat the same thing for lunch. And in business, that tends to carry over. You tend to do the same types of routine. That's a comfort zone. There's comfort in routine.
Why is that? Well, okay. That raises the question. Routine. I mean, I do a lot of the same things every day. What's wrong with that?
Well, in the context of business, here's what's wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it inherently. The question becomes, if you're aspiring to growth, which is the theme of Hustle or Bust, right? Mm-hmm. Routine could be a factor in that, but what's that old saying? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting different results. Mm-hmm. So, a few podcasts ago, you talked about stasis as it relates to Paver Art and our 20-year history. Recap that real quick. What stasis was as it relates to Paver Art?
Well, during that. Let's call it during that 15 or 16 year period, early on, everything changed every day. And it should have, because we were brand new, selling a brand new product into a market that had no idea that this product was even available. But as you got into doing the same things over and over again, as your formats and processes got to be tried and true, you just did them again every day. And you repeated that every day, and then you got really good at it. You can tie that to the 10,000 hour rule too.
Sure.
We're really good at those things right now. However, it became almost an issue of survival and not growth, and that's where the routine got to be not negative, but it got to be
an inhibitor to get
not
to the next
productive.
level. Right.
Exactly. When I say productive, performance stayed the same. The line on the graph flattened out. It plateaued. And we needed something to jog us out of that. And that's what I meant by stasis. You get used to doing the same things over and over again, and your reason for doing them, at least that's the reason that you give yourself, is that, okay, this is what's required to keep this business running. Demand for the product keeps coming in, but it's not going up. It's staying about the same.
Yeah, so I think why don't we, for this podcast, why don't we focus on you're beyond the startup phase? We talked a lot about startup, right? Let's assume you're beyond startup.
You're
right?
100% correct. I think that's key.
That could be 3 years down the road, 2 years down the road. Yep. And just like you said, you're doing your thing. You're supplying customers. There's clearly a demand in the world for your product or service that you're selling.
Right.
And you're beyond the, am I going to make it or not? You've determined that your product has a place in the world, and they've proven it with customer sales revenue coming in. And now you're kind of plodding along. You've got that routine. I wouldn't say stasis per se, but the comfort zone is you start to repeat the same types of things over and over again. Now we're thinking about how do you accelerate growth, right? Growth does become, unless there's behavior change, growth doesn't happen. It's a precursor towards results happening that are different than you want. So let's just say you're a $5 million business. You've been at that level. You're bouncing between 4.8 and 5.2.
Right.
And you're at that level for 5 years. back to the definition of insanity, you want to grow and you want to break the $6 million barrier. That's not going to happen just by wishing it to happen and setting that as a goal. You need real behavior change, and that typically is going to require getting out of your comfort zone. So that's kind of the context of what we're doing there.
Looking at it from a negative, coming in from a different side, you're basically saying it's uncomfortable. You're not used to that. It's easy to come in every day and do the same things over and over again because you can do them well. You've done them for so long. But in order to make the business grow, you've got to getting out of your comfort zone basically mandates that you've got to get uncomfortable with what you're doing every day
and figure out what those activities that you're going to experiment with that are going to happen.
And how you're going to get them done.
Right. So comfort zone applies to every single person in the business. Right. You look at every employee that's working in your business, there's going to be some level of routine. And then if you try and shake that up a little bit, bring in R&D, try new marketing tactics, experiment with new products, outreach to new customers, new markets, there's going to be a degree of getting out of your comfort zone within it. The business owner's job is to figure out what level of that activity has to occur to ignite growth and kind of think about that. But at its very core essence, getting out of your comfort zone is basically doing new things for you as the owner so you can set the example for your people. And generally people, some people love change. I think the majority do not like change. They like their routine. There's comfort in their routine.
So what you're saying then is you're implying resistance.
I think so.
So how do you knock
But this
down
podcast
those,
is not exactly comfortable for us. It's a breakup of our routine. Well, let's talk a little bit about our routine. We both get in the car at 4:30, 5 a.m. and we do the trip on a New Jersey Turnpike, Delaware to North Jersey, and we converge here at Paver in South Jersey. Mm-hmm. And we listen to our podcasts, we listen to our shows, whatever our routine is. And then at 6 a.m., we start firing away emails and we start catching up. We start responding to the inquiries that came in. So to do a podcast from 6 a.m. to 7:30, set up, do all that, that's not exactly, I would say, comfortable. Right now, it's easy for us once we get rolling, but that's a pretty big disruption of our routine. Now, is there a business purpose? We don't have big expectations. It's going to transform PaverArt. We're doing it because we want to figure out the medium and all of that. But that's one small example for us.
And we want to impart some knowledge.
We do. We want to give back to some of the things that we've learned.
Correct. Exactly. So, but you're right. Getting out of our comfort zone. But what's interesting, though, the one thing that I found about this is that, I was a victim of the day-to-day routines and the justifications and rationalizations for that. Okay, and I freely admit that. You came in and said, okay, I'd like to do this, 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 and this. And when I review all those items that we're going to take a look at and attack one at a time, okay, that's a radical change from what we were used to and what we were doing before. And what got to be almost fun is once I got over the initial, I'm bleeding out here. Once I got over the initial, in my case, it's never resistance. In my case, it's questioning. Okay, why are we doing this? How is this going to help? I'm a risk management kind of guy. Are we going to be taking too much time looking into this? Is it going to be taking away from the daily routine enough so that it's going to create a problem? My determination was no, but it only came after our initial one or two successes at getting out of our comfort zone, getting out of my comfort zone and participating in what we needed to do to move this business forward. The definition of moving forward is growing, getting bigger, more sales. And now I'm the hard charger. As far as I'm concerned, when you brought the whole idea up of the podcast, I was all in.
I think it was your idea originally.
Nothing to fear. This is just dive in. Part of fighting off initial resistance, especially if you come from a very conservative, and I don't mean that in a political implication, But when you're coming from a conservative approach to doing things, which means you're really limiting your risk, you're trying to get that risk down as low as you can go too far with that. You really can. Every once in a while, if not eventually on everything, you just got to pull the trigger and say, come on, let's go do this. We've realized that doing this is a good idea for the business. Let's pull the trigger and let's just go do it.
Right.
You got to do that every once in a while. You do that enough, it becomes comfortable.
Right.
Okay, that becomes comfortable, and that's a good comfortable.
Well, let's pull ourselves out of the business of Paver for a minute, right? And let's talk about our routines, and because you and I, we have a little bit of a thirst for knowledge, right? Why don't we talk about what we're consuming in our ears? I'll give you an example. There was like a 6-week period that I didn't watch cable TV, right? I didn't watch the news. I didn't watch CNN. Didn't watch Fox. And all of a sudden, my mind started to clear up a little bit when I wasn't putting
shocking,
crap, right? I wasn't putting crap between my ears every night and getting wound up on the COVID tracker or the politics. Or
I find that so
what
hard
did Trump
to
do
believe
today or what did Biden do? I mean, it was amazing that, and I'm like, let me just replace that with something, right? Something other, and I'd be reading, I'd be doing whatever, and then the podcast routine for me is amazing. You and I both got into Gladwell, right? And it was like a mini book club between Bull and Olivito.
Right.
And give me your perspective on the podcast that you're listening to and how that's helped you and or not done anything. Give me your thoughts on what you're consuming and how does that impact a small business? Does it impact it? Because part of breaking routine is what do you put in between your two ears?
Right.
Or not put in between your two ears.
By nature, I'm a fairly competitive guy. Okay. Played sports. Whenever I've done anything, it's a game.
Don't forget the accordion. Sorry, I had to strike that from the record, Dom.
Jeez. Can we edit that out? No, just kidding.
Sorry, everybody.
Can we edit Mark out?
It's
for the
part
rest
of
this podcast.
It's part of my DNA.
This is not going to go away. Well, I'm kind of a competitive guy. I've always been that way, but competitive in a fun way. I mean, I don't, I'm going to beat you. I'm going to take you out. I'm not that kind of guy. But it's interesting to me that when ideas come up that are good ideas that we need to do something with them, and I didn't come up with the idea, then I have to come up with an idea. Mm-hmm. And it's just the way I'm wired. So, and I look at it this way: that can only be good for Paver Art. So, how do you do that? Well, you've got to expand your knowledge base, and the only way you're going to expand your knowledge base is to expand and is to expose yourself to more, knowledgeable media that can give you information and feed you information that you didn't know of before.
Give me an example.
Oh boy, there's just been so many in the last couple of years. We were listening to. We both wound up listening to the Mike Rowe podcast where they had Jim and Sue McCloskey on there from Fair Oaks Farms, the makers of
Mike Rowe Dirty Jobs, for context.
Correct, right. Exactly. Mike Rowe from Dirty Jobs, Micro Works, and all that stuff. But he had Jim and Sue McCloskey on there. They were one of the episodes. And that's how they all got to be friends. One of the episodes on Dirty Jobs, but what
was your takeaway from that episode?
Well, the issue was there are ways. This guy had to find, Jim McCloskey and his wife Sue had to find ways to improve their product. They make milk.
Right.
Well, they don't make milk, but they have a dairy farm, and what has become now probably one of the largest dairy farms in the world. And they make the milk product called Fair Hill.
Fairway Life or Fair Life.
Fair Life. I'm sorry,
Yep.
Not Fair Hill. Fair Life. Pardon me, everybody. And the name of the farm is called Fair Oaks Farm.
Right.
But I learned so much in that podcast about how you can improve something that would seemingly be unimprovable. What possible thing can you do to improve milk? It
Right.
comes from a cow, you pasteurize it, you put it in some sort of container,
Right.
you send it to market. and it's on a no, oh my goodness, no. There's so much more involved. And what they did was they genuinely improved a product that they felt needed improvement. Now, we've seen that in our business, and we've tried to tie that to one or two different items that we're looking into that would improve what we're doing here at Paver Art. But the impetus to do that, I mean, I came in all excited about this podcast. I said, you're not going to believe what I heard today.
Can we stick on Fairway for a second?
Yeah.
The
Fairlife.
Fairlife, yep. They sold, I think, for over $1 billion to Coca-Cola.
To Coca-Cola,
right?
Yeah.
So now, by the way, that didn't come out until now. I knew that from just press,
Right.
But in terms of what you put between your ears, here's a company that you're right. They make milk, they do farming, they do all of that to bring milk to market. But the premise is they had a great outcome. They sold for $1 billion to a major consumer products company, one of the strongest brands in the world. So right there, and now we've got a podcast that's free, and we're listening to it on our way into Paver Art. How can you not be inspired and pick up a nugget or two from listening to that podcast?
Yeah.
And how did they get there?
That's exactly right.
They had a crisis where there was a undercover video guy or gal that caught 4 of their employees, unfortunately, abusing a few cows, right? Mm-hmm. And he got it on tape. It was a crisis. It was an existential crisis. And they talked about how he handled that crisis, the owner of the business. Mm-hmm. I hit pause. We switch over, Dominic and I switch over to YouTube, and I want to see his video. That he, within 24 hours, does a YouTube video, and he's going through step by step what he's going to do. Number 1, he takes responsibility for it, number 1. Number 2, here's what we think went wrong, and number 2, or 3, here's what we're going to do about it. And a laundry list of stuff. 24 hours within it. You could tell no PR firm was behind this at all.
Right.
This was him saying, my God, this sucks. What are we going to do with Let's deal with it. Let's deal with it now, and let's get after this thing. And he just communicated it to the world. No filter, no PR firm. Now I go back to the podcast, and we're going through the rest of the story, and it's like, boy, isn't that much better than listening to the political commentary of the day in terms of when you're trying to run a business, get out of your comfort zone, figure out growth. Listening to that is one hell of a difference than listening to the crap that goes on in the news.
I think the big difference is in the one case, you're listening to Fox, you're listening to CNN, MSNBC, whoever you listen to, you're going to get whatever it is they want to tell you and what they want you to know.
In a 20-second soundbite.
Correct. And that is very passive. That's a very passive media for you. It's going to give you what somebody else wants you to know, okay, or believe, depending on what we're talking about. But what we're talking about is stuff that's going to trigger a reaction. It's going to make us more interested in exploring that particular avenue from whatever triggered, that response from us on whatever subject it might be, because it's either tied to, it's going to tie to something with us personally, but in many, many cases, what it does is it ties us to something that's directly related to Paver Art. Mm-hmm. And I'm, you spoke about Malcolm Gladwell, and again, this is not a Malcolm Gladwell cult, mm-hmm. but I've read he's got 7 or 8 books out. I've read 5 of them so far, and what I found from reading the books is not just interesting little pieces of knowledge that are great at a cocktail party, mm-hmm. Or when I'm talking to friends, and oh, by the way, did you know, kind of thing. But
so smart.
What I see from Mr. Gladwell is an unending thirst for information, which gives you an unending, a continuous thirst for knowledge. Okay, knowing and being aware of those things that are around you, digging deeper than just the veneer of an issue, which you're going to get from CNN and MSNBC and Fox and all that. Really digging deep into something. When you do that, you can't help but bring that to work with you, mm-hmm. okay? And you might get an idea here and there that will trigger something that would be helpful for us here at Paver Art. Mm-hmm. But the overriding approach is that it's making you think every day, okay, I have this problem right now, okay? It's another and then, mm-hmm. and I've got this problem, and I've got to figure out how I'm going to fix it. Well, we're not just looking at the surface veneer issues of the problem. We're digging deeper. We're getting into it. That's what's going to allow you to go down hopefully a path or two that's going to come up with a more effective performance-related solution to that problem.
Yeah, I think, kind of step one, and we didn't prepare what are the takeaways, but the more I think about it, if you got the two ears and what you consume in your brain, I think it's like a file cabinet. There's only so much your brain can handle, right? And if you're consuming an hour of TV at night, and let's just say that's the news, if you can, or let's say it's 2 hours, it's in the background, whatever.
Sure.
If you can dramatically reduce that to free up space for other material that might be more relevant to your business or more value added, even if it's completely off topic, like a history lesson, whatever it is.
Right.
I think that's going to go a long way towards maybe helping you break your routine or freeing up some mental acuity, so to speak.
Sure, exactly. And it's led both of us to look into other writers, other podcasts. 5 years ago, I couldn't tell you one podcast from the other because I never listened to them. Mm-hmm. Now I listen to them every day. I listen to them on the way in from work, or on the way into work and on the way home. And we both have significant time to do that. In both cases, it's an hour plus, depending on traffic.
Well, so let's jump back into Paver Art now
Sure.
and talk about specific things we've tried to shake up. Maybe some people can learn from some of our tactical things that we've tried to shake up the routine, get out of our comfort zone.
Yeah.
One that comes to mind. All right, so I came in, I'm coming up on 4 years owning Paver Art, almost to the, what are we at here? Almost within...
August the 18th.
Is that what it was?
Yep.
I thought it was August 1st, but anyway. So let's just say it's 4 years. One of the things that we've tried to do, the first impression that I had is we make great stuff. I mean, you look at, we're making art, and you go out into our plant, and everything's got to have a photo shoot, which means it's perfectly clean, it's put together perfect. We get up, we hoist you up on the forklift to take an overhead photo of it. And every time I went, my first impression, this is really nice stuff. This is art, right? And we're going through the routine here, right? We're cranking stuff out. Brian's working his tail off. Everyone's working hard, right?
Right.
And we do the photo shoot, and it's almost like it's a whirlwind out there. And I'm looking, and I'm like, isn't anyone going to stop and appreciate what the hell we just built? And then we package it after it dries. We send it out the door, and then we move on to the next one. The phones are ringing. The machines are cutting. The guys are working hard. Everyone's sweating. And I'm like, lost in all of this is the beautiful product that we make, right? And then when you see it, and where's the installed photos? I want to see that thing that we took 3 weeks ago. Did we ever get a picture of it? How does it look in the patio or the driveway? And I'm like, so the first thing that hit me was like, we have got to fall in love with our product again, as if it was day one.
Right.
And we got to reinvigorate the imagination that we had when we said, how do we put art, turn pavers into art? And we got to fall in love with our product again. How do we do that? Basic question, right? Mm-hmm. And then, all right, so how does that dictate some of the changes that we make? Well, when the phone rings and the customers want to inquire, what's the price? How does that all work? What do we do? We engage them. Eventually, that turns into some type of proposal or quote, and we send it out to them. Let me fast forward now to 3.5 years, me at Paver Art. Our marketing is starting to work. Our awareness is building. And our quotes that, let's just say they used to be $1,000 a year, they're now $2,500 a year. The interest in our business is clearly improving. Mm-hmm. Well, okay, so we can do one of two things. Back to comfort zone. We can email out the quote, keep firing them out, and just work harder and keep firing them out. Or we can step back and say, we got to change our game a little bit here. So not all quotes are created equal. We'll quote anything from, $1,500 all the way up to $250,000. One of the things that we made, and COVID was a blessing in this area, is we said any quote over, what did we pick, $10,000 or $15,000? Any quote over a certain threshold, we're no longer going to email out. We have to email it out eventually, but we're going to have a Zoom call with that person. If the project is that meaningful, isn't it worth a 20-minute back and forth phone conversation via Zoom? Simple, right?
So logical. It was so logical.
How many Zoom calls did we have this year?
Oh, for a while there, we were averaging like 4 or 5 a week. The amazing thing about that was, there was no trepidation getting involved with that.
We thought they wouldn't say yes to a Zoom call. We were afraid to ask them for a Zoom call.
Amazingly enough, easily 90% plus of the folks that we've asked have said, sure, okay, yeah, we can immediately like to do that. And you and I both come from a world where we're sitting in front of a client face to face,
right?
Okay, and we conquered that years ago. And most folks who are, well, not most, I would say all people who are in sales have to conquer that fear, that trepidation of, talking to the client directly, looking them in the eye, probing for needs, professional selling skills too from Xerox. I mean, I think that's so old school. That's where the old school meets the old school. But all the Dale Carnegie stuff. Zoom was just a natural progression.
They made it easy.
Zoom is actually somewhere in between live, across the desk, speaking to a client face-to-face, one-on-one, and talking to them on the phone. Zoom is dead smack in the middle. The difference is, in real time, that Zoom call allows you to talk to that client and have them ask questions right then and there. There's no need for follow-up. Well, not follow-ups like you would that are generated from dealing with phone calls. Okay, phone calls require follow-ups.
Right.
You're going to send an email. You're going to do this. With Zoom, you're putting it up on the screen. That leap for us was huge. And if it wasn't for COVID, we might not have gotten around to that as soon as we did. But that was a major change, getting out of our comfort zone, saying, okay, we need to do that on a more regular basis. In fact, we came to that conclusion at the end of 2021. One of the goals for 2022, get in front of the clients as often as we possibly can.
On the quote process.
Yep. Set the minimum standard at $10,000. Anything above that. Plus, there's going to be times when it's not going to be $10,000. It'll be less, but you need to talk to the client anyway. That forum just seems to be a better forum than trying to do it by phone.
Sure.
So yeah, great example.
So it's a simple example that says, all right, pre-2022, so whatever, 2004 to whatever it was, right? All quotes, 100% of them went out via email. Sometimes we did it verbally. If we were on the phone, we could do it quick. It was a small little thing. But 100% of them, they got an email. And talk a little bit about that email, because it was a templatized email, right? You can't recreate the wheel every time. But talk about the template process.
When you're one guy and your job is to, and it has always been and will always be forever and always, the most important part of this business is answering that phone.
Sure.
Okay? Tied for first is answering that email. And the phone call is instantaneous. You got to pick up the phone.
Right.
If you just let it ring and it goes to voicemail, there's a 50% chance you're never going to hear from that client. They're obviously not interested in my business. An email should also be returned as quickly as possible. When you're by yourself, you're just forced to find ways to streamline the process. What's the easiest way to streamline the process? Templatize whatever you can,
right,
so that you can crank out the greatest number of quotes.
Copy and paste and change the numbers.
Just change the numbers, change the location. The freight quote might change, but the idea is attack the whole sales effort in numbers. Because if your capture ratio stays the same, but you increase the quantity,
your sales should improve.
Right. And you don't get more basic than that. You really don't. And that works when you're in the mode that we were in before. It doesn't work now, okay? And it doesn't work now because, well, it still works. You still have to do that. And that template that you're doing is still part of the process, but it's only one part of the process. Now you engage the client. Now you follow up. We brought in contact management software that tickles us when, okay, it's time to follow up with this client, give them a call and see where they stand.
That was out of our comfort zone.
That was a big
leap.
It was a big leap. And
let me stop you there on that.
Well, it's a big leap when you're the one that has to do the work to set the whole damn thing up.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So we had support.
It's easy to say. It's easy to come up. We need some contact management software. We need to go do that. Well, let me tell you something.
It's the implementation.
The implementation is the hard work. So
that's right. Now, the beauty of comfort zone, you can very easily, not easily, depending on the business. If you're a one-man solo entrepreneur doing consulting, let's say your job is to get consulting gigs. You're in whatever business you're in. Maybe it's analytics, maybe it's computer programming, maybe you're a videographer and you do video shoots and you do $1,000 video shoot. It's weddings, it's bar mitzvahs, whatever it is. It's really a function of everything can be broken down into a formula. It's how many quotes, let's just say 100 quotes a year I give out, and I capture 40% of them.
Mm-hmm.
So I got 40 jobs for the year. And then what's your average price point per job? Well, let's say it's $1,200 or $1,000.
Mm-hmm.
I've got $40,000 of booked revenue. If I can get them all done within a year, there's my sales. So to your point, I can either take the 100 quotes up to 200, or I could take the 40% close rate up to 50%, or guess what? You could do both. Go from 100 to 200 and 40% to 50%. And now you have exponential growth, right? So you can kind of attack it that way. Am I going to increase my activity or improve my response rate? Now the question is, back to comfort zone. You're not going to will the 100 to go to 200 unless you have a strategy. Are you going to do paid ads? Are you going to do blogging? What are you going to do to get from 100 to 200, right? And then what are you going to do from 40% to 50%? Now, we focus more on close rate that said, if we have a live conversation via Zoom, and let's just say our close rate is less, it's 25%. How do we go to 35%? Our odds, just intuitively, if we have a live conversation via Zoom, have to increase if we're presenting what that quote is, answering questions. They've got to improve. It's not going to hurt you, right?
Sure.
It can only help you. Now, we don't do a good job figuring out, did it really move? We need more time. We probably need 18 months to really figure it out. But the behavior change, if it makes sense, get in front of them live via Zoom, ask all the clients above a certain threshold, pretty big behavior change. It requires 50 Zoom calls is not an insignificant amount of time. That might be 60 hours total, right?
Yeah.
So
Average Zoom calls about anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes.
So all of this, now by the way, we've always worked hard. We didn't just work 60, I don't think we worked, correct me if I'm wrong. That didn't cause us to work 60 extra hours. We just stopped doing other things.
Right.
Because we were already busted it. So we shoehorned it into the week that was already busy, right?
Yes, and that goes back to the whole prioritization concept that we talked about in an earlier podcast. But isn't it interesting? And we're salespeople. We know other things, but we've been intimately involved with other things.
Right,
but
that was a fun goal.
Exactly. But I know for a fact I'm much more effective when I'm in front of a client than when I'm talking to them on the phone. Mm-hmm. I'm effective on the phone. You're effective on the phone. Good salespeople are effective on the phone, but you're much more effective when you have an opportunity to speak with the person eye to eye.
Sure.
Otherwise, I would never. When I first started out in my sales career, I never would have. If I knew I could sell just as much by talking to people on the phone, I never would have left my house.
Sure.
Can't happen. My close rate was much higher when I was actually talking to a client across the table. I can see the problem. I can sense that there's a need, and then probe for that need. Maybe go down the right. I can tell when I ask questions what kind of response I get, not just from tone and timbre of voice, but I can see their eyes. I can see their facial expression. I can see the movement of their body. It just all that stuff clicks, and you get a lot of that with that Zoom call. So there's a big leap, comfort zone, out of it, yes, to a certain extent, because we didn't. We've heard about it. We heard about Zoom, but we had to get it, and just dive in head first. Prepare, but dive in head first and say, okay, we're going to do it. And we did. It took us 3 or 4 times to kind of get it on.
Iron out the kinks.
Now we're pretty good at it.
Now, I will say, because you and I are both salespeople, we can make the argument that wasn't getting out of our comfort zone. That was just getting better at something we're already pretty good
That
at,
argument
right?
could be made.
We don't have a production schedule at PaverArt. We've been around for 20 years. Here's what we're not doing well, right? Because we're not a perfect company. We're doing this to learn and get better and hold ourselves accountable in part. When I say we don't have a production schedule, we are ruthlessly militant that if you put a deposit in today, Miss Consumer, Sally, and let's say that deposit's $1,000, you're in line based on when you got that deposit in. So if you call me in January and then come back around in late July and put the deposit in, I'm not going to give you credit for the January because other people have been putting deposits in.
Right.
But we will put your deposit in now, and if 3 weeks from now someone puts a $50,000 deposit in, your order's getting made first. Mm-hmm. It's first come, first serve. It keeps everybody honest, and it keeps the rules kind of known that quotes mean nothing. The only thing that matters in the world of custom construction, is deposits. And when you send it in, that date, you get credit and you go into production line. And we're not going to jump people unless we can do things like a Saturday production and customers willing to pay for that, things like that. That keeps us honest.
Order grouping, like
Right.
type materials, like type sizes, things like that help.
So our production schedule is basically just that. If we've got 30 orders on the books, we've got them in the order that the deposit came in, right? So that's basically how it works. But we don't say that this job will take us 1.5 hours of production time, this job will take us 75 hours of production time, and this job will start it on this date, end it on this date. We're directionally accurate, but we don't have a production schedule analytically broken down and calendarized out.
Right.
And it's been 20 years, right? So you and I getting out of our comfort zone is mandating that happens and working that process over time as ruthlessly analytical and militant that we did the sales piece on Zoom, right?
Exactly.
We haven't done that. So here we are, we're talking about getting out of our comfort zone. There's still a ton of things that we've got to do to make sure the operations is moving along at the same speed as sales.
Exactly. And it's at the end of the day, what's that going to do? That's going to make us more
make us
performance
better-
driven. It's going to
better
make us
customer service.
more productive,
Right.
more efficient when it comes to cost, whether it be labor cost or materials, inventory, whatever it might be. I love coming to work because of this. There's no, the one thing about repetition, doing the same thing, doing the same
better
routine over and over again, it's, it can get a little boring. It makes you want to come to work in the morning because there's new and exciting things that are going on all the time, and you get used to that way of business life, and it just naturally follows that you're going to do that more and more and more because you like it so much. You've gotten used to it. Nothing to be afraid of.
Right.
There's nothing to be concerned about. Getting out of your comfort zone can be very comfortable after a while. Okay.
Let's talk about the world that we live in as it relates to the universe of inbound inquiries that we get. So we deal with a number of key constituencies: landscape architects, homeowners, distributors, contractors that actually install and do the work,
Right.
end users like colleges that will call and they want to get their logo into paper art.
We touch all the bases.
We touch a
pretty
lot.
much,
We touch
yeah.
pretty much everything, and we've got a pretty strong representation, a portfolio, a body of work in each of those. So here's an interesting one that I'm fascinated with: contractors. Of all the inbounding, let's say we get, let's just use a round number for easy math, 100 inquiries a year. It's more than that, but let's just say 100 inquiries. 10 of them, let's say 15% of them are from landscape architects. Does that feel about right?
Yeah, it's about right. Yeah.
I'd say 5% might be end users like universities. We get a fair number, but it's the minority. We get a ton from direct homeowners, the residential market. And then we get some from contractors too. Contractors, by definition, are going to touch every single job regardless of market. They got to install it, right? I am fascinated. Of the 100, 5 inquiries come directly from contractors. Let's just say it's really small. And then I would say of the 5, half of them, 2.5 out of the 5, someone's forcing them to call us.
They were prodded by their client to call
Which might
us.
be the homeowner. Hey, I want this compass rose. Call Paver Art. Get it going. So in other words, if it wasn't for that end user, we'd be down to like 2% of all the inquiries from contractors. Give me your thoughts. Why is that? Are they not out of their comfort zone?
Well, first of all,
How does that exist?
we need to do a little bit of a deep dive. Why? It seems to be a conundrum of the highest level that the person that represents the market, the contractor market for us, that's the person that is in direct contact with the clients more than anybody else.
That's right.
They're sitting across the table from them. Here's what I can do for you. I've drawn this up. I can do this. We're going to get this kind of material for over here. We're going to get this for your stone kitchen. We're going to get this for your fire pit, so on and so forth. We're going to build this. I'm actually kind of going through this right now. That person we identified early on as one of the single most important people that we can expose our product to.
Sure.
Early on, the first 5-6 years of this business, when we were doing a couple of shows a year, a couple of trade shows a year, they were contractor and distributor driven shows in the concrete paver industry. And we felt very strongly that we were going to get just, oh wow, the flood doors are going to they're going to
Once they
open
see
up, and get ready. The onslaught's going to. Well, that didn't happen.
Right.
Okay. We did expose the product to everybody. They were interested. They thought it was great. You know, as my brother coined the term, happy talk. Got a lot of happy talk. Oh yeah, got a lot of happy talk. Boy, this is fantastic. I can sell tons of this. You look at that, you know, and I'm still old school. I'm still handwriting my call reports. I've got a call report on everybody that came to that booth.
Perfect.
That I could get on, that I could, you know, get information down on, because they were coming in droves. And if you go back and look at all of those people I talked to, and they got dressed down big time. They heard everything about. There's the piece right there on the floor.
They got the full smear.
You've got a panel of displays of all the different products that we built, installed, shots from the shop.
So they got educated.
You couldn't expose this. They got more than educated. In 20 minutes, these guys could, maybe even less than 20 minutes, they're going to know as much about PaverArt as anybody else is going to know, if not more. I go back and I check all of those guys. Maybe 2-3% we get an order.
So how do you explain
But
that?
most importantly, maybe 2 or 3% we get an inquiry from. Because as you and I have found,
Right.
as quotes go up, sales trend right behind that.
Right.
Okay. And well, we knew that early on too. You've got to get the quotes. If you don't get the quotes, you're not going to get the orders. Okay. But very small percentage of inquiries from these guys. Why? Because we thought they were going to be so turned on by the product that as soon as they sit down in front of their clients, they're going to say, oh, by the way, you should check this out. Now,
Do you think that conversation didn't happen?
that's a proactive approach to sales. You should check this out. Look at this here. Would you be interested in having something like this put into your backyard patio? Would you like this fire pit ring to put? It's going to dress up that fire pit that you bought and really make it special. But
You don't think that conversation happened?
no, zero. Well, maybe not zero.
I think you're right.
But the idea here is we didn't dig deep enough. I'm not a contractor. My brother wasn't a contractor. Mick was a contractor. But Mick was already, if you want to use the term, poisoned by the positivity of PaverArt. Mick doesn't count because Mick was the one who came up with this idea for the business. He's a contractor.
Right.
He's not dealing
He's the
with
worst one to
he's not
represent.
dealing with other contractors, okay? He knows what he's like as a contractor, and Mick was an entrepreneur in the purest sense. I've got an idea. This idea is a great idea. I'm going to do what I can to make this idea work. And that's what he did. That's how this business got started. So you got to discount him. So when you look at the three guys that are running this business, we thought we could project, we're smart. We can figure this out. Contractors are naturally going to, no, they're not naturally going to sell. You've got to go deeper. These guys are comfortable with installing. They're comfortable with the standard products that make up the bulk of what it is that they're doing. This little icing on the cake, the little cherry on top of the ice cream sundae, is only going to come up if the client, their end user, says something to them or asks them about, I want to dress this up a little. Yeah, you know what? I saw something at a show. I got to figure out. This was early on. This was 20 years ago, 19, 18, 17, 16 years ago, when Google was not as sophisticated as it is now in regards to tying your website to certain search words. How do you do search words for PaverArt?
Nobody knows.
18 years ago.
Right.
So we're getting swallowed up by all of this non-effective sales, and we're thinking we're actually,
Your thought is they're not even bringing up the conversation. That's why our inquiries are so
correct,
low.
and that's
I
the
think you're right.
conclusion that we came to.
The snotty little expression that I use is your chances of hitting a ball increase by a factor of 10 if you actually swing.
It's
So You're
you
right.
can't win. It's the lottery. You can't win if you don't play.
I mean, at least swing. So you don't got to be an expert on paperwork, but maybe. So here's what I've tried to do with contractors, ineffectively, by the way, because we haven't moved the needle. So we're talking about getting out of your comfort zone. So we got to try different tactics. The question is, does paperwork not have enough awareness, or is the awareness done? We just got to get them to swing somehow. I've tried to make it. So you're right. The contractor's sitting down with the homeowner. They're having a conversation. They're talking about fire pits and square footage, and eventually they get the cost.
Right.
It really is. I think what I've tried to do is give the contractors a way to make it easy. So I say, hey, contractor, do you have Instagram? Oh yeah, we've got Instagram. Pull up Paver Art Enterprises LLC and do this. That's a great picture you have on your wall right there. I noticed that you've got a fair degree of art in your house. You've got pictures on the wall, some family, some landscape pictures. I want you to be aware of everything that's out there. You might not want to do it, but there's this company called Paver Art. Let me just flip through. As you can see, they got some pictures of. There's some posts on their podcast. There's a compass. You start flipping through. There's a compass. There's a fleur de lis. There's different designs that they do. As I'm flipping through, does any of this catch your eye that you want to actually explore that? Shut up. You've done your selling. That's all you got to do.
Right.
If they don't want, I'm not interested. All we can ask, 20 seconds. Instagram, flip through 3 times with the finger, 3 swipes of the finger. That's it. I'm going to make up 90% don't do that. In that critical moment of the planning of the project, 90% don't. And because we just measure the math. Or we just don't have a lot of interest. But we know if we expose homeowners, I'm a great example. Kim built our backyard with our contractor. We did a fire pit, we did a retaining wall in the front, we did a patio. And where the light bulb went off for me, where I wanted to eventually buy Paver Art when I found out that it was open, is why didn't we know about this? Why didn't the contractor suggest it? Simple. He didn't know about Paver Art.
Sure.
That was an awareness issue. I can guarantee you, if he did 3 swipes of the finger on Instagram of the Paver Art, if it existed at the time, the Paver Art Instagram account, Kim would have jumped on something. Absolutely, she would have. Mm-hmm. We're going to spend all this money, and you're telling me that 5% of the cost would be that design that makes me unique and unlike anything in the neighborhood? She absolutely would have done it.
No question about that.
3 swipes. That's all they got to do. And if they don't do it, they're in their comfort zone. And they're not getting out of it. And they're not going to, and that doesn't mean they're not going to grow. They can be very successful. But for us, we've got to convey 3 swipes and just give it a shot.
Well, then
and if they don't, we're talking directly to the homeowner.
But what do we
They're
do?
coming to us anyway.
But what did we do? What did we do to counter that? The most important thing we did to counter that was rebuild the website. By the way, you don't get more out of your comfort zone than having to build a website.
On your own.
Yeah, it's now.
There's a good example, too, what we did. We were paying $750 a month to a third-party firm, and here was their report every month. And WordPress, a WordPress platform that makes it easy, every month that you look at it, they got to update the plugins. What this company would do is send us the plugins that they updated. And the plugin, it's a lot of work for $750 a month. To update a plugin, you have to click a button that says, okay, update. And they did that 3 times. So I figured out that they invested about 12 seconds a month on updating the plugins, and they sent that to me as a report.
You don't strike me as being a cynic.
Not that I'm bitter on that or anything. So I did this madness for 12 months or 14 months before I said, at what point am I going to wake the fuck up and say, I'm paying $750 a month for someone to hit okay 3 times? Right? Maybe I can save myself the money. Now I got to learn how to build a website on a platform that makes sense. And I'm not going to learn. Kim's going to figure out how to do it,
sure.
And we're going to add our copy and we're going to participate in. That was surely getting out of our comfort zone, trying to figure out how to manage our own website. But there was a payoff there.
A huge payoff. And what was the payoff? The payoff was for every contractor that calls us up and inquires about our product for an end user, we get 10 end user calls, if not more. It's easier now for an end users defined as homeowner, to find us. And now that we've segued into a marketplace where Google, websites, all these things, people are much more sophisticated now than they were 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. And they're very comfortable in calling a manufacturer. Mm-hmm. They have no problem doing that whatsoever. Now, the calls take longer, but the chances of you closing a deal by dealing with the end user and not the contractor has essentially become, and this is all due respect, because the contractor's got a tough job.
Absolutely.
Very, very difficult.
harder than ours.
Very difficult job. And I tell them that all the time. Let us sell your client.
Just open the door.
Let us sell your client. Your job is tough enough. All you got to do is install it, and we make the installation easy for you. The idea is we get that client, we get that end user client, and I don't care what business you're in. If you're talking directly to the person that's shelling out the bucks to buy your product, and they've had a chance to go to your website, and it's a well-built website and a website that really does explain what you do and is populated with tons of photos, because that's where people react, videos of the product, blogs that have all sorts of explanations for those people that want to delve a little bit deeper. I really like this stuff, but I need to be more comfortable. I need to understand a little bit more about it. It's all there. It's all there. It's doing the selling for you. When that call comes in, they're 50% of the way to the closing process for that sale, and it just made things so much easier. And it's we're not trying to box the contractor out. We want to get more calls from contractors. We're interested in them. They are still the best one-on-one salesperson in front of the client when they're in front of the client. Then you're going to find.
But the other thing is, I will say maybe this explains it. We will control the price, so as much as possible. So
Right.
I believe in distribution channel as a business owner, you've got to know how your product gets priced.
Right.
So you price your customer very easy to see, but then what happens among the distributor, as everyone starts throwing their markup on, where does your product?
Multi-margin layers are a killer.
So here's what I
got to
do.
be careful.
Number one, distributors, we went through this before. They didn't stock our product, so you squash that strategy. If they're not going to put skin in the game to at least take the product, display it, we're going to get rid of that, right?
We signed up 220 distributors. We now have,
two, maybe.
Yeah, maybe two.
And they're
Maybe
one-offs. They really are.
Yeah.
They're not stocking. So, but anyway, when contractors call, what we do, we're fully transparent. All right, Compass Rose, let's just say it's $3,000.
Right.
That's your contractor price. Hey, just so you know, if the homeowner calls us, they're going to ask for a price too, and they will find us because 98% of our or 95% of our calls come directly in. Just so you know, your contractor discount is not much. It's 5%. So contractors are like, I can't make a living on that. I'm not telling you what to charge for it. You charge whatever you want. All I'm telling you, Mr. Contractor, is if they call me directly, here's the price. Now, let me talk to you about how long that's going to take you to install. How long does it take you to cut a 5-foot circle? Oh, I can do that quick. And by the way, none of them are going to say 3 days, right? Because now they're talking about their craft, right? So, all right, so here's what it takes. We're going to build it on the floor. We're going to give you a picture. We're going to section it off. But here's your hard work. You've got a 5-foot compass rose. Cut a 5-foot circle. Build yourself a little jig like the homemade, the third-grade compass. Or what do you call that thing? Is it a compass? That thing where you stick the sharp needle in the thing and it draws around? The old school tool?
Yes.
Is it a compass? All right. So
By the way, the yes came from our producer.
Yeah, very good. Dominic Oliveto.
Dominic Oliveto, our producer. Thank you very much. He gets a mention in every
Plug number 75. They draw a 5-foot circle. They cut it. They're going to say, whatever, half hour, 45 minutes.
Right.
Then they got to remove those pavers, and then they got to put those in and do a sweep over, right? 9 times out of 10, we find out that this is a 3 to a 5 hour job, depending on the size of the compass,
Right.
or whatever the design is. All right, so you got to cover that labor, right? When you have contractors taking a $3,000 piece, trying to double it to make a 50% gross margin, then throw their labor on top of it, then throw their overhead on it, and they end up with a $12,000 piece, you're never going to sell this. Now, I'm not saying that's happening, but we're going to take that risk off the table and tell them our direct homeowner price that you pay $3,000 for is $3,200.
Well, we're not. That's not happening. I don't think that's happening because we're still getting, by a factor of 10 to 1, the end user, the homeowner, calling us.
That's right.
More directly, more often than the contractors do, and that's fine.
Right.
Again, we're not saying anything derogatory about contractors. They are basically what they run.
They run the industry.
They run this market, and
This is about delighting customers, is it not? And being agnostic to how you do that.
and getting them. Yes, and then the idea is to getting them to call. The whole getting out of our comfort zone in this particular case was taking the weeks that it took to build the new website. Do the write the scripts. Put the right photos up. And by the way, the website's constantly being built. Adding the Instagram page to the home page of the website. For anybody that's wanting to move their business forward, Instagram is a pretty key issue. I mean, it really is, especially if your product, we build a custom product. You want clients to see what you're capable of doing. You want to trigger ideas in their minds in regards to what they want, so they can get something special for their, for their backyard patio, driveway, walkway, whatever it might be. But it's uncomfortable building the website. And then and by the way, let's take a bow, Mr. Oliveto. The other thing that needed to be done was understand the back end of Google and Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and Pinterest, all the social media outlets that could be used as potential marketing agents for Paver Art. Again, what we're trying to do is drive the client to us, call us. The whole idea of this whole business was built on, if you can get the client to call us, there's a better than average chance that we're going to get the sale. And again, we love what we're doing. We love what we make. We make a really nice product. We understand that. We want the clients to understand that. We want them to experience the wow factor. The whole idea is to get them to call us. But the uncomfortable part about this is spending nights and weekends, which you did, trying to figure out this whole Google ads, Facebook ads. How can Instagram be more of a help to us marketing our product? And after diving into that for 2.5 years, I think you were pretty successful.
Well, I think the getting out of your comfort zone starts with a goal. Almost everything comes back to goal setting. Where are you at today? What stasis level are you at that if you don't change your behavior, you're probably going to stay there? Defining that, whether that's the formula, the 100 quotes, the 40% close rate, the $1,000 price, there's your formula. How do you want to think about baselining your current business and then the behavior that's currently driving that? Now figure out the new goal. Should you want to grow, right? And everyone listening to this probably is in that mode. Now you got to kind of say, all right, what's the behavior change to get out of my comfort zone to take my business to a new level, right? For us, it definitely was this digital marketing, all this stuff that we didn't know. I never built a website in my life outside of my blog. And now you got Paver Art, and we're paying $750 a month. There was urgency there. That was an incentive for us to do that just to save the money. But I also thought if it was easy enough to update, there's a benefit in having an updated, fresh website every single day. Mm-hmm. And there's tools that we can do to do it. So I thought there was a benefit there. But you got to set a goal. You got to say, we're going to get into X. And then say, you got to demonstrate behavior every single day. In the world of digital marketing, if you're not doing activity towards that activity every single day, defined activity, you're just not going to get good enough, quick enough, right? It's changing too quick. So for me, it was every day we're going to have Instagram photos. We're going to have a Facebook post. Twitter, I'm going to schedule and kind of put that on autopilot. Mm-hmm. I'm going to make some choices within it, and I'm going to try and get a blog out once a month, right? Now, they might not have been aggressive enough goals, but they were goals that prompted us to get out of our comfort zone and create new behavior.
We were never there before.
Right. So it's all new activity.
It's new. It's going to generate something.
It's only upside. But you do have to make choices. So, and you're right. I threw off hours work on that, weekends and all stuff like that. But then it became part of my routine that at 6:30 I'd walk through the plant. Hey, there's a new picture. Let me take a picture of it. Let me crop it. Throw it on Instagram. Do the hashtags and try and get better at that over time. We're not great at Instagram. We've got 3,000 followers. There's contractors out there that have 10,000 followers and growing every week. So we haven't cracked the code on this by no means.
Sure.
So we're not experts on digital marketing, but it's all relative to your baseline. Again, comfort zone and the stasis that you're currently operating in. We knew that if we got into it and established a presence, it would kind of bump us. Impossible to define how much it'll bump you, but it's got to bump you some way, right?
Exactly.
But define your stasis, set a goal, and that goal's got to prompt new behavior change to kind of accelerate you down a new path. That's the defined way to get out of your comfort zone. The easy stuff is stop filling your mind with crap. Fill your new mind with new stuff. Replace the Fox News or the CNN with Gladwell.
Right? Define crap, buddy.
Right.
Define crap.
It's
the one of the things I think we hammer, as we say around here, we beat the hell out of that. We beat that up pretty good. One of the things that was both one of your pet peeves and my pet peeves when you first came on board 4 years ago, and you know what, you're right, I think it was August the 1st of 2018. We've made our bones in this market. Absolutely made our bones in this market. When you look at the percentage of contractors that know who we are now, the percentage of landscape architects who know who we are, homeowners, distributors, manufacturers, I'll leave them last because that's one I think is really important in regards to this point. The percentage of folks that know us now is much, much higher than it was 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago. And this goes for anybody. I don't care what business you're in. We can't get anybody to call on us. You would think some sharp sales guy would go, you know what? Is anybody calling on Paver Art? They buy a lot of material. Whose material do they buy? How often do they buy? How much do they buy? I'm wondering if I could get them to buy my product. You know, when you have to learn about a manufacturer's product line all on your own, passively and proactively, it's a shame. It's a damn shame.
You think they're in their comfort zone? Selling the same distributors, the same contractors, doing the same thing?
I don't think you get more comfortable than that.
This industry, and I come from the outside. I come from the world of consumer products, food, right? The concrete paver industry is the definition of stasis. I mean, there's some innovation. There is a sea of commodity things called pavers out there.
Right.
And there's a sea of salesmen and marketers that are doing the same thing they've always done. To your point on why wouldn't they call on a Paver Art or be knocking on
our door? When I say call on it, I'm not just saying once. We're on your regular route schedule.
Right.
Okay. Your regular route schedule. Bill, where are you going to be this week? Well, or Jimmy, where are you going to be this week? Well, I'm going to be over here. I'm going to be over here. And Wednesday, I'm going to go see Paver Art, and Thursday, I'm going to see these three guys. And you're coming to see us once a quarter, twice a year. We don't care how often it is, but just we'd love to learn more about your products.
I gave an indictment about our industry, right? That it's every industry is like this.
Right.
They're kind of, things are done a certain way. The salespeople call on certain channels, they don't call on others. The marketers, they do the catalog. They do a core set of activities, and when there's 100 companies that manufacture pavers out there, they all start to look like each other. This is the classic commodity business. Now, if you're a brand that's going after the high end of the market, that makes you cringe, but they are. There's a sea of pavers.
Oh, yeah.
You put 50 brands of pavers out there, I dare anybody that's not in the industry to pick out that's one brand, that's the other brand. They can't. So it becomes a price-driven thing. Now, there are quality differences. We see that with what we cut.
Sure.
This paver is different than this one, and we can tell you why, we can tell you the specifics. But guess what? Is that homeowner that's sophisticated with it? They aren't. They need to be educated. That's a marketing challenge. But this industry is like any other industry that's kind of in the routine of doing things a certain way, up until the point when they all get disrupted by a Walmart coming in and lowering the price and changing the model, or different things that happen in different industries that cause a shakeup.
Sure.
Real disruption usually comes from outsiders coming in with fresh eyes and look at things completely different. I can give you example after example in the food business. But anyway, the point being, we're like every other industry that does things a certain way, that's in a comfort zone. Salespeople generally are in a position, hey, wait a minute, if they're buying pavers, they're different. Maybe I want to learn a little something about that and form a relationship. And what downside is there? If you're in sales, by definition, that's some of the most entrepreneurial functions within a company. They're there to generate revenue and new revenue and maybe find new markets and things like that. So prime opportunity, but everyone's in a comfort zone. This cuts across every function of every business.
It does. And I can think of one very poignant example that actually became one of the more predominant photos of ours on Instagram, on our website. It was a compass rose. And this particular compass rose was surrounded by a particular manufacturer's product. And this particular product was extremely unique. And the idea to use this product...
Oh, the little things?
Yeah, the little egg shape.
Oh, let's give a shout out. That's Teco Block. They're Antica?
Was it Antica? I guess it was Antica. Yeah, that's exactly right.
The little black ones were on the blue compass rose. That's what you're talking about,
I'm proving my point right now. I'm just proving my point right now. You know, the client came up with that idea. Wouldn't this look nice if it was surrounded
by the Teco product,
by a bed of these products, of this particular product by Teco Block, and then that is surrounded by a Soldier Course border of some other unique product from the same company, Teco Block. And
now let me check myself, because you're right. I just called it a sea of pavers and commodities. That clearly is not.
But if you took that product by itself, standing by itself, and put it as part of your walkway to your home, or as a section that's the section before going into opening up the double doors to go into your building. Again, yes, it's interesting, it's unique, but again, it's concrete that's been formed into a certain specific shape.
So you've got.
But the idea here is they took it, put it around our product, and
we got blue.
It looked fantastic.
And
guess what? When I have the opportunity to sell that, when a client says, geez, Mike, can you make a suggestion on what I can do to build something around it? Yeah, you need to look at this product. If they're in a particular part of the United States where Teco is available, I would say, yeah, go look at this product. Here's the picture. What do you think?
I think we've sold 5 of those compass roses, that same exact one.
Right.
Now, we've got to give a lot of credit to the Teco, that Antica product.
Right.
Now, by the way, shout out to Teco, because clearly I made a statement that this is a sea of pavers and commodities out there. Teco's a brand. They are clearly a brand.
Right.
And they've got they have some unique products. We saw that. That's definite. Now, we think our compass carried the day on it, but it's hard to discount the value of that unique application, how they use those products, how it was installed. And we've sold product. Would we have sold 5 compasses without the Antica? Maybe, but I tend to think probably not. That was a unique breakthrough application right there.
The point we're trying to make here is that get out of your comfort zone. Give us a call. We got a guy that walked in here one day and said, hey, I got the better dumpster for you. I got a better dumpster deal for you.
That's right.
And 2 hours later, when we were finally able to excuse him from this sales call,
I got to correct you on that.
He got the sale.
No. He came in 4 times over the course of 3 years.
I apologize.
Right. Now he told his veteran story. Great guy. He's a classic old school relationship oriented guy. He's not talking about features and benefits of a dumpster. He had a better price, but he was a veteran, and we have a soft spot for that, right?
Classic relationship sale.
Yeah, and he's telling us the war story, literal war stories, where he grew up, the whole thing. And by the way, this is 3 years she's knocking on our door. And then our previous company, one of the big national dumpster garbage companies, they screwed up and they wouldn't come and give us a delivery. Bad service. What's the first thing we did? All right, let's give him a shot. He's been in here 3 times, and we switched. So better price, great guy, a veteran, but
by the way,
he needed a hiccup to get the business. Now we'll have our business forever.
Well, he's got our business, and then he got everybody else's business in the industrial park.
Because we went and we told all of our neighbors, he could save some money. The guy's great. And by the way, the company's been fantastic.
Yeah.
Shout out to them, C&H Disposal in Elmer, New Jersey.
Right.
Great company. Every time I call, we've got a concrete recycling bin. I'll call up on a Wednesday. I can get someone there Monday to pick it up. Does that work for you? Yeah, no problem. Or I can do it tomorrow. Is that great service? They're never more than 2 or 3 days. They've got the thing figured out. Great pricing. Same person that answers the phone. Old school business. They're not a national company.
And we get 2 dumpsters from them.
And we convert the whole lot to them.
Correct.
So shout out to the salesperson for not giving up after the first call. And he made the stop in every single time. And he did it old school. He was actually knocking on the door. There's no email, no phone call. He's walking in the door, leaving a brochure. I'm like, boy, this is a throwback. It took him 3 years to get our business, this complex's business. But he did. He got it.
He's obviously comfortable doing what he's doing.
Right.
He's conquered that and achieved that. How many people did he see after he saw us that day?
I think of that guy. He's got the plaid shirt on, the Army veteran hat. I think it's the Army veteran.
I believe so.
And by the way, we should have done that on the first call. But we were in our comfort zone of our current vendor 3 years. We knew we were paying a higher price, but do we really need to switch? Was it a priority?
Technically
that was
speaking,
the example of a comfort
we didn't
zone.
know until he quoted us
Right.
that we were paying a higher price.
But then when we got the bad service and treated like a second-class citizen, that gave us the impetus to then change. And he was the first call that we made, the only call that we made. We didn't bid it out. I mean, why are we going to bid out garbage, right?
Right.
It was a better price. It would improve us. He's a veteran. Looks like they'll give us service. Let's give it a shot. Gave it a shot. Fantastic company. I regret not making that decision quicker.
Yeah, and it's
Garbage.
It's a small.
We were in a comfort zone with garbage.
It's a small but important commodity item that needs to be dealt with every day. But when you're looking at our inventory, what we buy, how we buy, what we buy,
Yeah, you want to have a relationship with them.
who we
There's
want to buy from, it's
all salespeople where we sit in the industry. Every salesperson should understand this business. I wish I had that skill or this credential. I don't. Electrician, plumber, any general contractor that can build things or source different service people.
Sure.
Welding. What am I missing here in terms of the trades?
No, you've
Those are big
pretty
ones,
much
right?
hit them, yeah.
I'm going to venture
Carpenter.
to guess. Yeah, carpenter, right. Any of those trades, they're great craftspeople. They know their craft better than anybody, but they might not be salespeople, right? In the world, if you're in a trade that the world of economics is in your favor, there's more demand than people to do the demand.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you're an electrician. Let's just take that one. We've got 2 electrical jobs a year that we pay decent money for, right? We can't find an electrician. We're looking for recommendations. If an electrician took 1 day a month and just stack of business cards, drove around industrial parks, and said, I'm an electrician, I do commercial work, here's my flyer, I got a little website, if you ever happen to need anybody. You think that if they stopped into our place, they'd have business from here? We would call them up right away, and they'd probably get the business.
That's exactly right.
And then you can start bumping their rates up, right? Because they got more work than they had time to do it, which is the name of the game in that service business. So that's probably not a comfortable activity for that electrician to do.
Right, exactly.
But if they did that, they target an area, 10-mile radius from their house, wherever their base is, go in the industrial park, stack of cards, stop in. Who does your electrical work? I'm an electrician. I'm pretty busy, but I've got time for more people. Want to see if you ever had need for commercial services. And we got a project coming up in 8 months where we got to bring a new machine in, and we're probably going to need some help. All right, so what would you do? Well, let me take a quick look at it now. Now they're in their comfort zone. Well, we got a project coming up where a new machine. Do you have 3-phase electric? If it was me, now I'm the owner of the business. I always struggle with the basic technical questions. I don't freaking know, but do you want to take a look? Now the electrician is in their comfort zone.
Exactly.
Within 2 minutes, they walk in our plant. They're going to know exactly what we have. They can give recommendations. All right, here's what you have. Here's what you probably got to think about and what I can help you with should you choose to use me. If you don't, no problem. And by the way, I can give you other recommendations. Their stature, it doesn't take much for them to go right to the top of the list.
No.
So if I'm in a trades, carpenter,
exactly right.
electrician, half a day a month, just do something different, kind of that looks like that, to build up your book of business. You might have enough work without doing that, but I'd still do that.
I can't say that enough. I think that's so important. If you take anything away from this particular podcast, take away the fact that getting out of your comfort zone means doing things that you're obviously not comfortable doing. The chances are those uncomfortable things are important things to help move your business forward.
Let me give you one example you and I can relate directly to, because that's an electrician example. It's easy for me to say, what would I do?
Right.
But we are, I wouldn't say natural salespeople, but we're comfortable in the world of talking with people, right?
Right.
The trade shows that we did 4 high school recruiting trade shows. You are clearly different than me. You are comfortable pulling anybody from a group of friends and getting them more. I'm not comfortable with that. For whatever reason, you're like a 10 and I'm a 1 in that area. Now, once you get them over here, I got no problem talking to anybody, right? But you've got the ability, you've got no fear in that regard, where if a kid's with his mom or a group of friends, you'll yank them over anyway. And I just can't seem to get over that. I'm not comfortable with that, right? Talk about that, because now you get them over here, I'll engage in a conversation, no problem, but I just can't get over that hump. How are you able to do that so effortlessly?
Well, first of all, thank you for the nice compliment. That's very nice of you to say. It all goes back to me. It all goes back to the survival mode. If you don't do something, you're going to stand there for 3 hours and hope somebody comes to your table. And 95% of the people at that show are doing exactly the same thing. Some of them are automatically going to have people come to their place. Like, for those of you who don't know, ShopRite is one of the bigger supermarket chains in our area in Middle Atlantic states. Their line is 15 kids long looking for a summer job. We're not going to draw because these kids don't know what paver art is. How are they going to know what paver art is? So the only way that we're going to make that time worth it is to go out and actually you got to pull people in. Now, I learned that at the trade shows that we used to do. I did World of Concrete. We did World of Concrete several years ago, and we were the only concrete paver-related business there. Everybody else was related to poured-in-place concrete, decorative concrete, stained concrete, molded concrete. But the bottom line was, I basically had to go out into we paid a lot of money for this. It's in Vegas, for God's sakes. Nothing's cheap in Vegas. And I'm not getting comped because I don't gamble. So, and it was me and another fella, and there's just a lot of money. There's a lot of stuff riding on this. I'm not walking away without call reports. I want call reports. The more call reports I have, the more exposure we're going to have. And that's where it kicked in. That's really where it kicked in. Was it uncomfortable? Of course it was uncomfortable. It's tough doing that. Excuse me, sir. Do you have a minute? It's like the girl with the perfume in Macy's. Excuse me. Excuse me, sir. Would you like to come over and say, no, I'm not interested. Go take that something. You're going to get a lot of rejection, but the folks who are interested, you're 50% of the way there.
Right.
I had to learn that. It's the same thing with that show with the kids.
Well, I think meeting. I'll give you two little. And again, it's a lot easier to give advice than follow your own advice. So I'll do that here because I just admitted that you're a hell of a lot better at this than I am in terms of meeting new people and bringing them over. My son Dominic, who's generally I would say a shyer. He's on a shy version, right? And I think a lot of us are at 15. But the advice I've given him is next year he'll be in advanced placement computer programming, right? So something that he's good at. He's getting that craft, right? That's where you want to meet people because you're going to be in that same. You got a common thing right there. You're all in computer programming. Go meet 2 or 3 people that you don't know now. Put them on your chat, whatever it is, Discord. Start meeting people that way and something you're comfortable with. Here's a little bit of a war story. Maybe we wrap up on this one as it relates to getting out of your comfort zone. It just came to me as you were talking about pulling people over at the career fair. In college, right? So back in this is 1996. I was part of a group called the Student Marketing Association. And we did this thing. We did a career. We brought in 5 business leaders within the Boston community. And so all 5 of them showed up. They were going to talk about their experience and what should prospective marketing graduates start thinking about in their career.
Sure.
So I'm setting up. I'm running around. I was the head of the marketing association and the vice president. Shout out to Chip Quimby, who runs a martial arts studio. Awesome kid at the time, right? Mm-hmm. Now he's a man with a young family. Might be a podcast guest now that I think of it. Anyway, as we're milling together, I'm setting up the food. I'm running around 1,000,000 miles an hour, and then there's 3 of the people, the employers that we brought on to speak. And here I am dicking around with the freaking food in the back of the room versus meeting our guests. Chip, thank God he had brains and the ability that you have. He goes up to one of the guys, introduces himself. Hi, I'm Chip Quimby. And I'm seeing this in the corner of my eye. I'm like, oh, thank God Chip's doing that. He's got it under control. He's meeting them. He's making them comfortable. Anyway, let me fast forward now to we're into the program. The third guy to speak was the guy that Chip went up to. He starts going into his talk. He goes, before I get into my talk about how I can impart a little wisdom of my experience onto you guys and gals, I got to talk about Chip here. I came in the room and I'm kind of milling around and I'm nervous and, new environment and Chip comes up to me, shakes my hand, and automatically I feel comfortable. I appreciate that. And I'm thinking, man, this guy had some of my anxieties with meeting people. Chip took that completely off the table, comes up to him, introduces himself, and now the whole room of 50 people is hearing about how Chip had the balls, the courage, and the courtesy to go meet somebody and make them feel comfortable. Yeah. And I'm thinking, man, how cool is that? And then as I think about Chip and kind of watching his how he's built his business, how he's kind of lived his life, that is, he wasn't manufacturing that. That's who Chip is. But as it relates to getting out of your comfort zone, I sure as hell didn't. Chip did. Now, it might probably more natural, kind of like it is for you with the fair. I've got to figure out a way to have a little bit of Bull and Chip Quimby into my DNA to start doing things like that. Here it is, I'm 48 years old, and I'm still thinking about an experience that I had at 22. Mm-hmm. Chip did it the right way. Maybe that wasn't out of his comfort zone, that was natural to him, but I didn't. So here it is, I still think about those stories. You gotta do that.
It's very natural. It's the what did Jerry Seinfeld say on his own television show? You know, you have the number one fear amongst humans is the fear of talking in front of a group of people.
Public speaking.
Yeah, public speaking is the number one fear. The number two fear is death.
They better die to get a eulogy.
I'd rather die than give the eulogy. That was so funny. But
nothing better to wrap up on than a Seinfeld story.
But the idea there, he's 100% correct. But there is so much gratification in doing that and being proactive in doing that. I can't think of anything more uncomfortable
than a eulogy.
To this day, I get nervous. Everybody does. If you don't get nervous before you make a public, appearance with a speech or whatever it might be, or toast, whatever it might be, whatever it is, you're definitely wired differently than most of us, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't try to do it. And I love this. What's the worst that can happen? Well, the worst that can happen is you're going to fail.
You think you're head in a curve,
and you're going to get rejected. Well, you're not going to sell anything if you fear rejection. There are certain rejections that basically make their mark and they hurt, but they've become so few and far between in my life. Business related, rare's the occasion that if somebody rejects the product, I'm pretty confident that it wasn't because of me, or it was me and I made an honest assessment of it, and I try to tell myself that I've learned from that and that won't happen again. But it's it's truly uncomfortable, but it's also a method. It's also, you weigh that against survival. You weigh that against, am I going to waste 3 hours here just standing around waiting for somebody to come to me? They don't know who the hell we are. Most of them can't pronounce it. At any rate,
great example of Seinfeld story. If in terms of kind of tying this whole thing in a little bow here.
Well, the bottom line is, if you want to be successful in your business, I think one of the keys is that you've got to do a little inward reflection and look inward and see those things and measure those things and analyze and review those things that make you uncomfortable,
that break you out of stasis,
that will break you out of stasis. And if you can do that, you will find ways to move forward with that, do something successful with that, and it will help your business.
Like anything else, start small, set a goal, 1 hour every 3 days, 2 hours a week, in an area that you're uncomfortable with, that will change behavior to get you moving in a different direction.
Absolutely. No question about it. Well, I guess that wraps it up. I'm Mike Bull. He's Mark Alavito. And Dominic Alavito is our producer. That's plug number 78. So
good job.
Thanks, Dom. Great job. We'll see you all later.